Hello everyone. So yes, I think we'll just start in within a minute or so. Student tutorials that you have received would be based upon the presentation that we are looking at during the session. So this would be for your own reference, and of course, yes, uh, it is based on PMBOK. So definitely, I would not discourage or I would not say that you should not read PMBOK. Reading PMBOK is very, very important. But at the same time, if you go through these presentations or the study material that you have got, it would help you to understand it in a better way and in probably in a more compact manner rather than remembering each and every line from the PMBOK. You can focus on the important parts from the exam perspective, which would be highlighted in the tutorial. I think we should start now. So we left it yesterday over here on this slide, which was project management process groups, and I explained you that how these 5 process groups are working together. From initiation, you go into planning. From planning, you do execution. Then from execution, you might correct some of your planning, so you might go back to planning, then again execution. So this cycle would repeat itself for as long as it is required for the successful completion, and then you would be closing your project or a phase. And monitoring controlling is something that would keep on going right from the start till the very end of the project. Now let's look at one of the graphs over here. This particular graph is talking about how does the process group interact in a phase or a project. So on this side, on the y-axis or on the left hand side, you would find the level of interaction, and this is the time on the x-axis. Now in the starting of the project, the most um, interactive process group is initiation, because um, that's the process group that you take up when the project start. Of course, some of the planning also starts, some of the monitoring controlling also starts at the same time. And once the project moves on and you have done some little bit of planning, you might start some of the execution, like hiring certain people or bringing some people on the team. So those kind of execution work can start early in the project. But then the highest level of interaction still remains with the initiation. Now once you are moving ahead, you can see that the planning interaction increases to the maximum, and at the same time monitoring controlling is also rising slowly and steadily. Once you are in the middle of the planning, and by that time you would have also have started some execution, so you can also see that execution has also taken a start, and it's also increasing over here. Now once you move on, you can see that execution becomes most interactive process, and planning would start coming down, and at the same time monitoring controlling would remain there throughout. You can see this line. This line goes throughout till the very end of the project, and then the execution closes or execution finishes, and that's when you can see the closing here. This is the closing. This was not there up till here, but then once you are doing execution, you might have produced certain outputs or the deliverables of your project that can be delivered in alone, or they don't need to be delivered at the end of the project. So that's why you can see even closing has started interacting, because certain outputs might be delivered to the customer as and when they have been produced. But of course, the major closing would come towards the end of the project, which is here, and then the project finishes. So what we are saying is that the level of interaction of different process groups would change as per the project or as per the timing in the project, but of course most of the time these process groups would be visible, or there would be at least three of them, which is planning, execution and monitoring controlling would be available mostly throughout the project. At least I can say 80% of the time you would see three of them in the project. Make sense? Okay. So what I need to do to manage project effectively and systematically. First of all, we need to define and authorize our project or a phase, and that's what we do under initiation. After that, we need to define and refine our objectives and make certain plans to uh, how to make the output or how to execute our project, which is done under planning. Then you need to integrate people and other resources to carry out the project management plan, which was prepared here in the planning, which is done through execution. Then, of course, the monitoring and controlling of the progress on the project would help you to identify any issues, any variances, or any actions like corrective actions that you might need to take in order to bring back the project on track. So that's done by the monitoring controlling. And finally, you need to get the acceptance, a formal acceptance of the output of your project in order to successfully close the project, which is done by the closing. Pawan, are you still facing connectivity issues or can you hear us now? Okay, that's good. Shall I move on, guys? So what should a project manager know? The 10 knowledge areas, as simple as that. Remember the 10 knowledge areas? You had scope, time, cost, quality, HR, communication, risk, procurement, stakeholder. But how many are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where is the 10th knowledge area? This is the 10th knowledge area. Integration. Yes. So who does the integration? That is what the major role of the project manager is, to act as a project integrator or to um, basically carry out this integration management, because at times you would find that project manager is doing scope management or is doing time management, but on certain big projects there might be specialized people who are working on all these different knowledge areas, or there are different SMEs or different teams who are taking care of different knowledge areas, and project manager is just acting as an integrator, which is quite of a role in itself to integrate all these 9 knowledge areas and combine them together to produce an output from the project. So that is the major um, role of the project manager to do the integration management, and of course the rest of the 9 knowledge areas always he should be aware of. Okay, so this is the matrix. This is the process group matrix. This is the knowledge area matrix, or however you want to say. I'll tell you how to read it. So on the top, you see the columns: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and closing. And on the left hand side, you see the um, knowledge areas. Pawan, maybe because it's a very I can say there are lots of things on this slide, so if you're watching this or if you're looking at this on a smaller screen, maybe it's not very clear. So, but then you will receive your this card in the ebook, so don't worry about it. Just on the top, in the columns, you have the process groups, and on the rows you have the knowledge areas. Now you can see that there are processes written everywhere. So you have developed project charter here, you have developed project management plan, then on the next, then direct and manage the project work, then monitor, control the project work and perform integrated change control, and then closing the project or a phase. Now these are all processes. Like this, there are processes everywhere on this matrix. Now what does it mean? That developed project charter is a process which belongs to integration management knowledge area and is part of the initiation process group. Now, if I ask you that how many processes are there in the initiation process group, you just need to look in the first column here, and you would find that, okay, there are just two processes in the initiation that are developing the project charter and identifying the stakeholders. Now, similarly, in planning, you have got processes from all the knowledge areas. You can see that not even a single knowledge area row is empty when it comes to planning. So every knowledge area is contributing in planning process group. Similarly, in execution, again, we have quite a few processes, then in monitoring, controlling, and then in closing. So we would be looking at this matrix card before we start any process, and we would see that, okay, this is where we are, or this is the process we are looking at, and it would keep on reminding you, okay, that this process comes from which knowledge area and belongs to which process group. Okay, so this is basically what we have to cover in next sessions, all 8 sessions. So this is what we are going to cover. So in total there are 47 processes. 2 belongs to initiation, 24 belongs to planning, 8 belongs to execution, 11 to monitoring, controlling, and 2 to closings. This is just the distribution. Okay, now let's understand what is project information. So throughout the project lifecycle, there would be a significant amount of data and information which would be collected, analyzed, transformed, and distributed in various formats to different team members and any other stakeholder. Now, project data are collected as a result of execution process and are shared with the project team. This data is analyzed in context and aggregated and transformed to become project information during various controlling processes, and this information may be communicated verbally or stored and distributed as various reports. So understand the difference that we are trying to tell over here, that there is a difference between data and information. Now data could be just any, that's just data, but this data would not be of any use until and unless you don't put some context into it, or you don't do some analysis, you don't make certain decisions out of that data. So until and unless you don't do that, it is of no use. And this data changes into information after you place the context and you do some analysis, which is basically done in controlling and monitoring and controlling process group. So when the project team is executing the project, that's when the data is generated, and during monitoring and controlling, this data is taken and converted into information, which is then passed on to different stakeholders and team members to understand how the project is progressing. Make sense? Okay, so this is a proper flow diagram showing you how the data changes into information and then to reports. So we'll start from the very top, which is here, project execution. So once we are executing the project, the output would be work performance data. So we call it as work performance data, which would be used as an input by controlling processes, and the output given by the controlling processes would be work performance information. Now, this work performance information would help you to gain an overall project control, which ultimately would be in support of preparing some reports, because this information would then be further filtered or further you can say classified or grouped in different ways as per the different needs of the stakeholders, which would then form the reports. Now, these reports would help you to manage your project management plan in a better way, make any changes in the project, and of course do the communication to the stakeholders and the team members. So if you look at this chain at this point of time, I hope you would understand that this one, the one that I have circled or whatever it is. So execution gives data, controlling gives information, then that information is converted into reports. Those reports are taken up by the project communications, and these are communicated to the team members and stakeholders. Is this clear so far? Okay, there's a question. Data, info, and report. Yes, of course. Let's say I say 5 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, 3 hours on certain activities. Now this is called as data, which is generally produced by individual team members when they say that, boss, we have done this much of work on this task, we have done this much of the work on this task. So when they give you this data, basically this input, this is called as data. Now when you are controlling, you are trying to analyze this data and you are trying to understand that, okay, how much are we ahead of schedule, are we behind schedule, are we running on schedule, or what is the utilization of the resources, or what is the remaining availability of the resources, or how much resource consumption we have already done. So when you use that input given from the execution to make sense out of that data, then that would become information. Now based on that information, that are we ahead of schedule, behind of schedule, or whatever the information you're talking about, you would then probably classify it into different reports. Like maybe your senior manager, he doesn't want to know about the schedule performance, or he doesn't want to know about the uh, resource utilization. He just wants to know that what is the cost that you have used so far, and how much it is remaining, and are you ahead or behind. So you would segregate all other information, and you just keep that particular information and present it in a format as per the stakeholder, and send the report to that particular stakeholder. So that's how the info then gets converted into a report. So generally when you send out reports, you give them only a high level view of all what's happening, but of course there is a raw information, raw data behind that, which is nothing but the data or the information that you have been using to create that report. Make sense, Bhaskar? Good. Right, now I'll just come back quickly to these two boxes which I left. Now what it means is that work performance reports, when you see work performance reports, you would probably analyze and see that maybe there is some change required in the project, which would be taken up by the project change control, and there would be a change request that would be raised, and it would be changed, or that particular thing would be changed in the project management plan, which would again go for execution. So any updates in the project management plan would of course need to be communicated back to the execution team that these are the changes that we have made and you need to now execute as per the new plan that we have created. So again, this change in the project management plan would generally be because of the work performance reports or the work performance information that you have looked at and looking on, and then you decide that okay, something is not going right or there is a better way of doing something, then you might want to change that. So that's what these two arrows are denoting here. Okay, Nand, in this, I would say that project information workflow is actually starting in the execution because of the fact that that's when you start really working on the project. So in the initiation and in the planning, you are just planning out things. Of course, you would send out certain project management plan or certain reports or certain, not reports, but then piece of information to the people and the stakeholders, but that's not the real information that we are working on, or that's not what exactly people would be more interested in. So always the people would be interested in to see how the project is progressing. So that's why it starts with the execution. Otherwise, in the planning and initiation also, you do send out communications, you do send out people with the information, but that's just about the planning. So that's why we don't include it here in the workflow of information. So when you talk about data, that is related to what's actually happening in the project. So what you have planned for the project would not be data as such, but what is happening in the project is categorized as data, which will only happen during execution. All right, so let's move on. So you can see the examples, it should be something like what I've told you. So work performance data, they are the raw observations and measurements identified during the execution or the activities performed to carry out the work of the project, like recent percentage of work done or quality and technical performance measurements, start and finish, dates of the activities, number of change requests, number of defects, actual cost, actual duration. So you can see this is just like what I was telling you, that this is how many hours I've completed, or this is when the activity started and this is when the activity finished. Now you have the work performance information, that when this data which was created here is collected from various controlling processes, analyzed in context and integrated based on relationship across areas. So overall status of deliverable, that what is the overall percentage completion of a deliverable, implementation status of a change request, or maybe forecasted estimates to complete. So based on the data, you forecast that how are we going to um, change or how are we going to progress in the future. And then you have the reports, the physical or electronic representation of the work performance information compiled in project documents intended to generate decisions or raise issues, actions, or awareness. So any status report, memos, justifications, information notes, electronic dashboards, or recommendations or updates, they all form part of the report. So information would be like 100 lines, reports would be maybe 5 or 10 lines telling everyone that what exactly this whole information is telling you in nutshell. Is that okay, guys? All right, so now this is a quiz time. Now whenever you see a quiz time, you should understand that we have completed a part of the presentation. So after every part of the presentation, or sorry, can't hear me? Is it okay now? Okay, so um, whenever you see a quiz time on the slides, understand that you have finished certain topic, or we are done with certain piece of presentation. So after every part has been completed in the presentation, you would see a quiz time. So let's quickly go into quiz time. Okay, so please guys read the question, look at the options and answer or give your answer in the chat box, and then I'll discuss quickly. Right, so that seems to be a unanimous answer that I've got, which is functional, or A. It's a functional organization where team members are reporting to the functional manager. Now, I would not look at anything else. This line itself is enough for me. Reporting to functional manager. Always remember, guys, Abdur and Sharafaz, you have answered weak matrix, which I'll not say means it's a very confusing question at times. Means if it depends upon scenario. If they've given you a difficult scenario, you would get confused that whether it's a weak matrix or whether it's functional. So best way to identify differentiation between the functional and weak matrix is that in matrix, whatever matrix it is, whether it is, yes, I'm on the whiteboard. So in matrix, there will always be dual reporting. So be it weak matrix, be it balanced matrix, be it strong matrix, there will always be an element of dual reporting, which means the resources would be reporting to the functional manager as well as the project manager. But in the slide, in the question, it clearly says resources report to the functional manager, which itself means that this is a functional organization. I even don't need to read anything else on the question.